Do you trust that the dice will roll in your favor? Do you trust your own ability to control rage and fear in the heat of the battle? All this and more will be tested in Poetics' emotional role-playing game Sacred Fire, and with the guiding voice of Doug Cockle, the voice of The Witcher, your saga has just begun, and I can promise you, it's a heroic one. You are at war with Rome, and as the story begins, you are in the middle of the battle with the Roman centurions. It's like in the opening scene of the Gladiator movie, but this time the Romans don't have Maximus Decimus Meridius in their ranks, instead it's your turn to be victorious. Every class like warrior, hunter and elder all have beautiful backstories to learn more about their past. A thing I like with this game that makes it stand out compared to other games is that it's your choice in the game that matter. Not the class you pick at the start, so pick one that best suits your own personality. I had to try the warrior since it's my favorite class, but of course I did my best to be a friendly Viking type of warrior, which sometimes was really hard balancing on that narrow ledge of being either intimidating, fierce, kind and compassionate. As a warrior you are an orphan living with your brother, a brother with higher ranking in the village, and from the start this is something you have to deal with as you carve your own path and follow what seems to be your own destiny. That is, unless you believe that the Norns goddess of fate already have weaved the thread of fate for you. As you leave the bigger choices of how you like your playthrough to be in terms of difficulty and if the dice will be weighted in your favor or not, you will quickly notice that there are many elements of the game to keep track of. And the tutorial is really needed since it's a lot to keep track of, especially in the heat of a battle. And depending on if you created a character with physics, fortitude or leadership resolution skill, they will put to the test right away. Sacred Fire uses a role-playing form of gameplay where still images with just a subtle hint of movement tells the story, and that works really well together with the strong voice acting. As I start to get comfortable with how anger and fear affects my chances in dialogue or combat situations and slowly learn how to affect the outcome, I notice I start to play really safe and try to reach 100% of success for all my dice rolls just to get that outcome that I desire. And the combat worked really well, from the 4-step combination where every step like jumping over a log and then following up with a swift attack have to be rolled with the dice for knowing the outcome. These managed to really immerse me and I felt my heart race a bit every time the dice were rolling. Turn-based combat offers many ways to approach a combat situation. I like where I get to use intimidation and then with clever tricks lure my enemy where I want before striking them down with my sword. But don't expect it to be over there, you still have to roll the dice for whether or not to twist the blade in a dying man. Brutal and comes with emotional consequences. And all this together with the interactions with other leads us into what makes the game moving, or for that matter called psychological. Every action and interaction you have affects both you and the people around you. There are moments of love, trust and admiration, but there are also the lingering thoughts of doubt, fear, imposter syndrome and other darker thoughts and ideas you have to investigate and face. And I find it mesmerizing having a strong and successful warrior that still shows such a genuine and fragile part of himself, even if it's mostly to himself. Sacred Fire will not leave you all alone with these thoughts and burdens, instead you gain points you can distribute as in any role-playing games. There are the more vain ones like upgrade for hair, beard, shield and bow. Quick side note, that games that care so much for a beard are alright in my book. But the ones that for me were my greatest challenge to distribute are the ones that affect your mindset and how people will perceive you. Trying to alleviate the bad impressions but simply one at a time and never really solved it is a really interesting mechanic of the game. I get a bit of an ego boost when I can give my warrior the reputation of being both kind, swift and fierce, with an epic beard that is. I never used it myself, but if you don't like the outcome of a certain event or choices, you can go back and replay it and try out a different approach or altogether to solve it. This is like your bad luck rewind button. Right from the menu screen you are welcomed into this fantasy world with a score that for me brings back memories of the movies like Braveheart and King Arthur. And it only took the first sentence to recognize Doug Cockle's iconic voice.
Rome would have you believe.
And even if I immediately think of all the hours I spent in Witcher 3, it does not interfere with the overall experience of Sacred Fire, and the rest of the cast of voice actors do a good job of performing, and their voices match their characters very well. The different characters in Sacred Fire are beautifully drawn, and even if the characters sometimes seems to be reused, the snowfall that slowly moves across the screen is beautiful, the graphical style style is more of a pop-up kind of storybook and can also sometimes lead to some pretty amusing situations like this one that indicates that the character has ducked. It also never feels off with how the story is told, and there are enough graphical resources to not get a feeling of comic book and still moving the story in a role-playing game. You can, of course, after you finish the game, go back and play certain chapters if you are curious on how the situation would play out differently. Or perhaps you want to try a whole different class, and that is alright too. Just a warning that if you pass the character creation screen after starting a new game, your previous progress will be wiped. And how that affects the planned part 2 and 3 of this game series is unknown to me. That stopped me from doing another playthrough, even though I was curious of what the other endings would be like, just because I was happy where my warrior ended up in the story. Sacred Fire is priced at €16.99 or $17.99 over at Steam. For that amount of coins you get about 2 to 3 hours of amazing storytelling and emotional gameplay. The price feels fair considering the depth of the game and the immersed feeling you get as you progress through the game. Multiple different endings also can be a motivator to play the game more than once. But coming in at that price makes me wonder what the rest of the episodes will land in price in the future and how many hours of gameplay they will include. Sacred Fire is a unique and emotional role-playing experience, and true to the genre, every situation is being affected by the roll of a dice as you go through dialogue and turn-based combat. The way you get to witness people's greatest fears and needs, all masked behind fearsome exteriors and facades, make the game an emotional rollercoaster from start to finish. With a strong cast of voice actors and a musical score that breathes greatness, Sacred Fire has found a potion for a great storytelling adventure. You know what? Let's not end this journey here. You have seen the game. I have a fantastic game here that I think that you should check out. I'm Danny from Indie Game Viking, and I always say stay safe and stay awesome.